All right, hey guys, welcome back. So we've got a bit of a blow in the wind outside, and I'm kind of hunkered down here in the camper. And I thought I'd make a little video talking about my tool belt. I've had some questions about that, and I want to remind you, if you're watching this and you're a framer, why are you watching this? If you're watching this and you're not a framer, some of these things are really meant for framers. I am a strong DIYer, but let's face it, I'm building a house, right? This is not like your weekend, knock together a deck or a shed. Bit of a more significant project. Because of that, I wanted to buy something more sophisticated. I knew that although I wasn't going to be framing all day every day for my career, at the same time I had the same needs that a framer would have. So I need rapid access to certain kinds of tools. I wanted a rig that had, for instance, like a hammer loop here, keep my hammer close. I'm one of those people where I've never gotten comfortable with the hammer banging me in my butt as I'm walking around, so I don't like the hammer, loop in the back. I know that's a personal preference thing. It doesn't matter whether you're a pro or not, but what I'm wearing here is my upgrade. I started out with a tool belt, and I've been through the usual like Home Depot $30 leather kind of hang on the belt ones, but I started out with an Amazon generic, I don't remember the brand name, tool belt that looks a little bit like this, where it has a suspenders and belt rig. I do like suspenders. I have trouble with my hips, getting pain in my hips after the end of a day, so the suspenders really just help shift the load to here. So I'm really used to that. And this is the Perkins Brothers rig. In my opinion, this is a good, reasonably priced middle ground tool belt. And I'm here to talk about my experience with it and also why I'm planning on changing from it. And I think some of those things will be obvious as I go. So first of all, hammer loop. Obviously this is a must. You want rapid access to your hammer. This works great, except it's got a little problem. This particular tool belt, the hammer loop is not lined. It's just this heavy denier Cordura fabric, and I favor the Fiskars hammer. I really like this. I like it in my grip here. I'm often wearing gloves outside. It's snowing. I don't know if you can see that out the window, but I'm working in sub 20 degree weather in some of these cases right now. Here it's a balmy day at 38. Yesterday it was 22. So working with gloves is a big advantage for me. Also, softer hands. Obviously I'm not a pro framer. Pulling GRKs out of a bag, I'm going to cut myself. So, that kind of thing. I'm not interested in getting big, thorny, pine tree calluses here. So I like the Fiskars hammer. This has been great for me. Drops in really easily. It is sometimes a struggle to get out. You have to pull it out exactly at a certain angle. And if you're climbing up on the top of a scaffold and you're going to pull it out here, it can be a little bit of a pain. So that's sort of a functional but maybe semi-complaint number one. If you have a smooth-handled hammer, it's going to work a lot better. The Fiskars has this kind of rubber overmolding or silicone, whatever this is. And while I really like that, it does make it a challenge in the bag. Second thing is the tape slot. This is not my actual tape. I lost mine last night. I actually found it this morning, but forgot to put it in my bag. This tape here is sort of my backup, just a special ops tape. Say what you will about the brand. They're okay. It's fine. This is a magnetic tape, and I've learned to hate it. It picks up filings and all kinds of stuff in the bag here. It'll pull fasteners out of my bag, so not a big fan of the magnetic feature, but the tape works okay. The tape pouch, I set my bags up backwards, and I did that on purpose, but I ended up having to make some trade-offs. I think the original way Perkins shows running their rig is they've got this bag here on this side, and the reason is that way you pull your tape out, you can pull a tape and then mark something to cut it, right? So left hand on your tape. I'm a little bit different. I'm right hand dominant, but I also am used to working with my tape over here. If I'm going out with the saw, the chop saw, or my hand saw, my framing saw, I'll pull the tape. Usually I'll pull it from my left and then I'll mark it this way. So even though I'm marking with my non-dominant hand, it's just a habit I've gotten into. So I tend to keep my tape on the right. And one thing that this bag does not have enough of is fastener pouches. You'll see why in a minute, but part of my problem here is that I have fasteners in my tape pouch. These are my Simpson 1.5" screws, my structural screws, the SD screws, and I'm using these for my hardware, obviously. And one of the things is that I think a lot of pro framers probably are in certain modes. They probably tend to run their stick nailer for 3 days, and then they'll go around, do their hardware for a day. I don't know, I haven't been one, but I'm guessing just from videos that I've seen. My problem is I'm switching modes every hour. You know, I'm up and down on the ladder, I'm putting hardware in, I'm hanging a rafter hanger, and then, you know, so I'm nailing it with my nail gun, then I got my Simpsons, then I got my strap over the top, so I got my Simpson nailer, my positive placement nailer, so I need sticks of nails for that. So I'm running a lot of different kinds of fasteners all at the same time, and I'm running out of places to put them. So I've got my little 1.5" screws here just because it's the only place I could find to put them. And, you know, it's okay. They kind of sit under my tape. They keep the tape actually a little bit proud in the pouch, so that's fine. But, you know, that is a complaint. If I could go back and do it all over again, I would love to have another pouch or two on here for fasteners. Now, getting into some other pouches on the right hand side, you can see I run 3 pencils down here. They do have 3 pencil slots, which I love. This has been great for me. I like to run 3 because I've got a sharp one, a dull one, and a red one. And that's just really handy for me if I'm doing fine work. You know, I'm getting like the top end of a bevel cut on a rake board or something like that. I want a nice sharp line. If I'm just doing general layout, I want a nice fat line. And this way I've always got two leads with me at all times. And if I ever drop one or lose one, I mean, I've got spares floating around everywhere. But if I ever drop or lose one, which I do all the time, these slots don't hold real well. So if you bend over, stuff will fall out of them. I've got a spare. And then the red one, just, you know, to have something that stands out periodically. I actually detest this. Don't recommend these. What they don't tell you in these packs, you'll see them all over YouTube, on TikTok, on you know, online on Amazon, is that these are great. They work fantastically well. These are not graphite. These are graphite, very hard material, and I don't break them very much. This is wax. The problem with that is that when you're marking on a board, you're going to snap that all the time. It's just way too soft. It needs to be a much harder wax to really work well. So I've tried all the different colors these kits come with. They've got red, they've got blue, they've got yellow, but they're all wax. If it's not the graphite one, they just don't work as well. So if you really want a colored marker, the OXO and some of the other brands out there are fine. But otherwise, you know, for the 15 bucks I paid for these Nick Pros and the million extra lids they include, I'm not too unhappy about it. Now, where the bag really starts falling down for me is over here on the right-hand side. I carry a lot of different kinds of tools. So I already showed you my 1.5" structurals, my SD screws, right? But I also carry a fistful of GRKs. And, you know, as a DIYer, I'm always dealing with, I'm not flying trusses, okay? I'm not doing, you know, open web floor joists. Instead, I've got standard, you know, dimensional framing lumber, and it's not perfect. It bends, it warps, it's twisted, and I've got to deal with that. I can try to buy the straightest lumber I can, but I'm not at Home Depot picking out 2 boards at a time, right? Again, not a DIYer building a bookshelf. Building a house, I'm getting my lumber delivered. It's coming on pallets. You know, I'm getting, you know, maybe 50, 100 sheets of OSB or sticks of 2x6 at a time, and you get what you get. You can reject them and send some back, but you're going to get some material where you're like, yeah, I'm going to cut blocking out of that, or I'm going to try to cut, you know, the 6 foot length I need out of the good end that isn't all warped on the other end. But sometimes you still need to draw stuff together, and GRKs are amazing for that. I'm obviously not framing with these, I'm framing with nails, but you find a million uses. You can drive them in, you can hook your bar on and bend a board around. They seem to work better than a nail. You can draw material together, yada yada. Okay, so in any case, I carry a fistful of GRKs over here, and that pretty much consumes that pouch. So you start running out here because Perkins included another pouch behind that, but it's so narrow that you can't put any fasteners in there. It's sewn very tight. That's sort of a common thread I'll talk about when I get to the other side here. But this second pouch here, I don't even know if you can see that there is one. I've actually accidentally dropped a screw into it. It's so narrow that unless you were going to put like a micro square, something like that in that slot, I can't imagine what else you would really use it for. Now, just behind that, there is another pouch before you get to the main compartment, and that is actually broken up, divided inside. I don't know if that's going to come through on the video here. That's divided internally into 2 more compartments, which again, maybe a pro framer's got a system for this. It never really worked out for me. I can't positively place something front or back in that slot, in that compartment. So I kind of just use it as an open compartment, and that's where I've got, as you can see, a couple of shims. I'm always going to need those, and my Tico nails. So these are my nails. If you haven't seen these are for a positive placement nailer for hanging hardware. If you're not running these little 1.5-inch screws, you're running these nail strips. And these need to be kept dry and out of the rain. Where all my other nail strips are typically plastic collated, these are paper collated. And it's funny, it's sort of nice at first. You start out liking it because with the plastic collated, these little bits of plastic are always flying around. And if you forget your safety squints one day, you're going to be reminded because they're going to go in your eye, I promise you. These paper ones don't do that. They don't have debris that flies out, really. Or if it does, it flies out to, you don't even see it. It's like dust at that point. The problem is that if any water gets on these, they literally melt. They just fall apart. So you've got to keep these safe and secure, and I tend to keep them in this pouch here because it is the narrowest pouch. And if I get them stuffed down in there, if it's raining or something, it kind of hangs down below with the bag and water doesn't seem to get on them too much. Then there's just kind of a lack of tool storage. Okay, so again, solo DIYer, I probably carry more tools than a pro framer would. To a pro framer, it's basically hammer, saw, hammer, saw, and tape maybe, right? So they don't need as many things, but I do. So if I'm working with rake boards or trying to get some fascia, some trim really perfect at an angle, and okay, you can say 512 roof, but might be a 1/2 degree off. If you want a nice tight joint, you really need a bevel gauge. And the reason you do that is that you can't speed square that stuff. Yeah, I carry a speed square, it's actually fallen out. But I have my standard 7-inch square. The problem is that if you really want a precise angle on something, you really want something that you can lock. So this will let me get up on, on a rake board or something like that, get my angle exact to where I want it to be, either read it off digitally or just lock this in and transfer that measurement down if I'm cutting some trim. So I do carry one of these regularly. Even when I'm framing, I'm always moving tasks around. And so I tend to have this all the time because, if I got just that one board and I just want to know if it's a 1/2 degree off, this will tell me. So I carry this, and as you can see, this is too fat to fit a typical tool holder. It's about a little over 1 inch by maybe 3/4 inch, maybe 1.25 inches by 3/4. So a typical tool loop in a smaller bag that's designed to hold a screwdriver won't hold this, so it gets shoved in the open pocket. Got a torpedo level. Now on the rig that I'm going to be getting, I'm upgrading to a Diamondback this winter. I'm going to be using one of the, not the Stabila levels, and they've got a little bump out, and that bag has a slot just for the level, which I'm really looking forward to. But I don't have that right now, so my level just hangs out in the bag with everything else. But I use this all day long, so I need it. I use my utility knife very, very heavily. I'm always cutting stuff, joist, deck joist tape, cutting any kind of like zip tape, anything along those lines, cutting open packages, slicing through the straps on lumber pallets. I'm using my utility knife constantly, and I go through a 50-pack of blades in about 6 months here. So I'm always using that pretty regularly. This is actually funny. This is a Harbor Freight one, and it's almost identical to the DeWalt one that they copied. Right now, the DeWalt one is starting to fail on me. It works really smoothly, and I like it, but the blades don't release very well anymore. So, although this is my favorite utility knife, I've actually set it aside. I've been using the Harbor Freight one lately. And this Doyle, it's been fine. It was cheap. I think it was $6 or $7. I don't remember. I got it on sale. And keep that in the pouch as well. So, another big, fat, bulky tool that won't fit in a typical screwdriver holder. And I carry 2 screwdrivers. Yes, I'm not a pro framer. I do drive screws pretty regularly. And it's not in the structure. It's stuff like I just put a ghetto door on the front door of the house to keep it winterized over the winter. I'm not ready to install the front door yet. I don't have all my exterior cladding or anything else in place. I don't have my WRB on or my flashing, so I don't want to put the front door in, but I need something to keep the animals and the snow out. And so I'm putting hinges on, right? I'm fixing my generator. I'm dealing with one of my tools that's got a nail jam in it. I'm always using something where I do need a pair of screwdrivers. I'm not doing electrical work. I don't need 35 tools, but I do use these tools pretty regularly. Now, I could use bits in my driver. I carry a driver that I'll show in a minute. But the problem is when you're doing fine work, an impact driver is just not your jam. Like that's not how you want to be like getting hinge screws in because you just blast them through the board. So I carry some hand screwdrivers here and wish I had a better place to put them. And last but not least, I carry a fat red marker. And mostly that's because this keeps letting me down. But also sometimes it's nice to be able to make a mark when you're working solo that you can see from 20 feet away. You know, you just need like a visual alignment mark, and it's not really the right spot for a string line or a chalk line. This marker's been great for doing that. I mark OSB, you know, doing all kinds of rough lumber. So I carry that around, keep that with me all the time. And then the bottom of this pouch, I don't dare reach in here because it's full of like sharp stuff. I'm always just, this is my dumping ground. If I got cutoffs from shims, an extra jigsaw blade, some weird number 10 lag screw, you know, just random stuff always seems to get dropped in here. And I never know what's in the bottom until I clean my bag out once a week, which, you know, actually happens once a year. One thing I do like about the Perkins tool belt is that they have a chisel holder. And you can see that what they've done is kind of clever. They've lined it with plastic here so that your chisel's not going to cut the bag. I actually carry both a chisel and a small hand straight saw, just a little pull saw. Mostly it's, again, framers not going to use this a lot, but for me, you know, I'm new at this. I'm always doing a little bit of trimming stuff, fixing something I screwed up. I got like the seat cut on a rafter and I was an eighth off and I just needed to kind of tweak it a little, and I had already set my saw down. I can just kind of quickly nibble in there. I'm routing out my windows and cutting the OSB around a window opening, and you know the router is not going to get right into the corner, so I can just use this to kind of just nick it off just a little bit. I splinter something with my saw, got a little extra bit sticking out, and I don't realize it till I'm up there about to actually nail the board up. I just pull this out and knock that off. So I do keep this around. I do actually use this a surprising amount, probably at least once a day, so I'm glad to have it, and obviously I got my chisel in there. And they both seem to sit in that pocket pretty well. But now is where you can start seeing some of the initial problems with this bag. Actually, you know what? I'll come back to this in a minute. Round the back here, I did an add-on. This is the, I think it's Spyderco, I forget the brand name of it, but they've got this company that's got these little clip-ons, and what it does is it locks, so this can't come off my belt. No matter how much I bounce around or bang into things and I'm clumsy, you know, my drill is not going anywhere. I know that some people like the drill hooks where the drill just kind of hangs down in it, but I wanted something with a little more positive locking, and I love this little tool. So that sits back here pretty well. It itself is not very well designed. I got a little wire on here to hold it on because it slips off. But what's nice about this is that then if I want to get my drill, I just flip the tab and it'll pull right up and out. I can just drop it in and I'm good to go. So that's just been a convenience for me. I use my drill all the time driving the GRKs or these Simpson 1.5s. Just all kinds of stuff. I've got, you know, ledger locks, you know, these kinds of things, putting ledger boards up for decks. Well, not that one, but the ledger locks are bigger than that. But you get the idea. So I'm always running around with some 1/4-inch stuff going on, and that helps me with that. And then around the back, I got my chalk box. Same way they run it. I don't love this. This pouch is kind of too deep. I think it could be used for just about anything, even though they say chalk box on it. Problem being that my chalk box handle gets caught on it all the time. So what will happen is I'll forget to flip the handle back over, I'll drop it in, and the handle will hang up in here, and I can't get my chalk box back out. So, you know, that might just be the way the Milwaukee is designed, but I do love this as a chalk box. So, you know, at least it's out of the way and not, you know, filling up this bag. Don't worry about what that is. That's just a remote for a winch. We won't get into that. Over here I got my cat's paw, and you can see that that just sits in here pretty nicely. They've got like a triple slot open kind of web thing in here, so it doesn't get hung up. It tends to go in. The only problem I have is sometimes when I put it back, I will accidentally drop it in the second hole, and now what's happening is it's low enough that it's hitting my leg a lot, and let me tell you, that's like a sharp. So you got to watch out for that. Make sure you get it in the right hole there. User error, no big deal. And then over here I got a couple of sticks of standard framing nails. I always keep those. I like to keep them in this pouch, kind of handy here, close by, and I keep them, you know, the way they're going to go on the gun so I can pull them out fast. And I carry a pair of pliers because My lumber yard loves shipping me stuff, not just with a couple of staples you can just pound down with a hammer, but covered with those white plastic cap staples that, you're not leaving those on the lumber, right? You got to pull those out. So I can use my cat's paw to get them a little bit, but then they bend and only one leg comes out. You need something to pull them out. So I'm using my pair of pliers all the time. Just a standard lineman set works really well for me. I used to keep them in here, but now we'll get into some of the defects. So I used to keep these here, but what happened is, you can see on this bag, now I'm a solo DIYer, very heavy DIYer, but this is only my one house project. And in 4 months, I think I got this bag in June, I have managed to more or less destroy it. It is falling apart. So you can see what's happening here is basically all the stitching is letting go. So right here, this is tearing straight down the side. I don't know if you can get a look at that. So this pouch no longer holds anything. I just stopped using the pouch entirely. Down over on this side, you can see that this pouch, it's sort of like a double Velcro system, the way these pouches kind of overlap and then fasten to themselves. But the Velcro that's supposed to hold this higher up on your belt here is letting go and falling down, and because of that, the belt is wearing through. So this, honestly, this is just cosmetic. It hasn't really affected the belt's functionality, but that is definitely starting to fall apart, and something that's not going to last me much longer. The stitching here is starting to let go, so you can see this whole sleeve is about ready to fall out, and you can see the sleeve itself is actually even cracking. So that's not good. Yeah, just generally having some quality of life issues here. I've also noticed that although I do still pretty much like the suspenders, they're very comfortable, these hooks will often turn around if I'm not careful and dig into me. They're very big, meaty hooks. If you can see, there's a huge flip tab on that hook. So I really wish this was more streamlined. Honestly, if it was me, I might even cut that tab off, just grind it off with a Dremel. And the reason is that although you can just pull it out by hand, and it's extremely rare that you disconnect these. Once they're on your bag, you tend to leave them on. So the other alternative would be for me to just kind of permanently attach this here, but I'm upgrading the bag anyway, so I'm definitely not going to do that. And then final complaint, as you can see, it does have some drill bit indexes here, and I'm using them for all kinds of things, but they're not super well thought out. So look at the problem here. This is one screw, okay? Now, granted, the screw's a little on the sticky and sharp side here, but I literally have to unscrew it to get it out, because when these drill bit indices were sewn, this is nylon, not stretch fabric, not elastic. This is just that standard Cordura that is used everywhere else. So the problem is that it's sewn tight here and here, so there's no give to allow a bit to go down in. So you can see, let's take the shaft of a bit. Let's say I wanted to put it shaft down, which is how I'd like to store most of my bits so I could quickly find the square head, right? Well, if you want to put it in there, you can't. There's no way to get that bit in unless you force it in. Now, I've been using this belt for a while, and I've kind of worn it in a fair bit. When I first got it, it was impossible to get bits in and out. I just didn't bother. I eventually gravitated to using these little railers. I forget what I don't know if that's the brand name or the name of the actual product, but in any event, I use one of these. I don't have it here on my bag here because it's actually over in the house right now, but these things are great. You can clip them on anywhere. You can clip them high if you want. You can put them down on the loops or the rings, which is how I often do it, and they will hold, you can get ones that'll hold like 10, 20 bits, but that's kind of crazy. I only never need like 3 or 4, and then I have some extras on my drills. So got a T25, T30, a square head, and then a couple of others, a Phillips, and then a little drill bit for pilot holes. Every now and then you're running some big like lag screw near the end of a board, and you just want to pre-drill to avoid splitting it. That just tends to help with it. All these screws, they say they have drill heads here where they'll make their own clearance, but they'll definitely still split a board if you run it too close. All right, so let me wrap this up here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in here. I think this ended up being a little bit of a rant, but hopefully it'd be helpful for anybody that might be looking at a tool belt. I did consider the Acrebus leather one, and they're stunning. They're absolutely gorgeous. The only problem that I had with it is that, again, I need professional quality tools and capabilities, but I don't necessarily have the budget that somebody that's going to frame for 10 years and know that, hey, they're going to pay that tool belt. If it's $1,000 for the tool belt, by the time you're done, pay that off over 10 years. It's only, $100 a year, no big deal, right? For me, in my case, this might be the first and last house I ever do. I hope it won't. I hope to do this again. But it's also possible that I'm definitely not going to be building 20 more, right? Let's acknowledge that. So I wanted something that was a little more realistic on the budget. And for this year, I eventually settled on the Diamondback. I think it's going to be a good fit. Hasn't arrived yet. Maybe I'll do another review when that comes in. But in any event, this was my run for the Perkins belt. I will say one really good thing is that this buckle is amazing. It's one of those things where it stays in place, stays where you put it. I was worried that I'd be bumping the latches, fat belly, that kind of thing, and it'd fall off. It never really happens. The only time I've ever had that happen is if I don't get it fully latched the first go. It'll pop out, but it does that immediately when I put it on. So it's not like it happens while I'm up on a ladder. But this thing, you drop this on, put this here, and I don't even need this. You can almost see that, because I don't have any weight in the bag, there's no weight on my shoulders at all. So it is properly fit, and it's hanging on my waist very well. And then, when I hit the weight in it, the shoulder straps just help distribute the load, especially when I'm leaning or moving around. So in any case, that's my bag. That's everything that I run. And I know it seems like a bit of a hot mess and probably more than I might need, but I use all of these things basically every day. And, I think if you were setting up a rig for sort of solo DIYer, you would probably need a lot of the same stuff in your kit as well. Anyway, thanks for watching. And hopefully we'll see you on the next video. I'll be making one last wrap up as I start getting some roof sheathing on here. And yeah, that'll be it for the season. Thanks for watching.